Hey, Ostomer, thank you very much for that host. It's good to see you. And yeah, Cameron, you know, last night you had a friend or a roommate of yours who really seemed to enjoy what we are doing and the type of people that we are. And so that was really cool that you encouraged him to tune in. And hopefully he sticks around and continues to enjoy things. Daniel, I see this is a stream that you won't be eating in. Probably not, Daniel. At least not until the very end. I did grab something right before going live. Yeah. Oh no, you live in the future, Ostomer. It's breakfast for you. There are always breaks, and so what we're going to be doing tonight, LethalityComplex, aka Selene, the female half-elf cleric of death, aka Miss Death, aka the character that I can never seem to afflict with some kind of status condition in our Tuesday game, is here, kindly enough, giving his time to discuss the Ravnica Magic the Gathering setting. And the reason why this is going to be relevant to you all out there is because, dun dun dun, Ravnica is coming to Dungeons and Dragons. On now, see, I'm just gonna autocorrect this. It says 20 November, but come on, let's be real. We all know it's really November 20th. November 20th, 2018. The Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica will be coming out, and so this is a great time to discuss the setting. Right? Last week we made 2 characters using the Races of Ravnica guide. We had Winifred Malicia, who is actually also a Death Cleric, so Lethality might be able to relate a little bit, and Byra Vern, a fiend patron chain pact warlock. And they both turned out to be neutral evil, and with the way the conversation was going and the way that the characters were being generated, and with a vague consideration of the setting, we made them into this anti-hero pair. Kind of like the Suicide Squad of DC or the Thunderbolts of Marvel. They're not good people, but they don't do bad things. Does that make sense? They don't do, or maybe they do bad things for not bad reasons. I don't want to say good reasons, but they do bad things for not bad reasons. And so I want to spend this week, let's fill out the setting, right? Normally we'll just, we'll pound out 5 characters, we'll make a map or a dungeon, and then on Saturday we tie everything up with a nice neat bow, and when we make a milestone outline for a campaign. And we can still make the campaign, but we already have our 2 characters, and I think that'll be enough. And what I want to do is let's take some more time and explore. Let's make some NPCs. Do we need fully fleshed out character sheets for them? No. But let's make some NPCs. Let's make the world. Let's make or if not the world, let's make the neighborhood that Winifred and Byra actually exist in. The same neighborhood that they do pay them protection money, quote unquote, but they protect their neighborhood from other influences. And so this is our prompt. I'm going to slide into chat with LethalityComplex here, and if any of you have questions about the setting, or whether it's MTG terms or D&D terms, please ask in chat. And I don't mind answering, although I will most likely be deferring to my special guest of Lethality, who is giving his time and attention here to share with you all. Let's go into the super secret chat room. Hello.
Hey.
All right, here we are. Let me catch up on chat real quick, and then I think we're going to be good to springboard. I did open up the website that you sent over here,
Yep.
Guildland here, and I also have the reference page to our Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and I have a blank tab open in case there's something else. Actually, did you send me a secondary link after your first one, or was that a repeat?
Nope, I sent 2 other links. Those 2 will be for once we start creating NPCs.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, then I'll keep that open and we'll click over to it.
Yep. Those two links are basically talk about the basically the guild masters of each guild and the creators of each guild, which will probably end up being kind of important, as those are they're NPCs that basically shape the perceptions of the NPCs that we might be creating today. Especially the ones that are still in power, like Rakdos is a very good example of this.
I want to go back real quick here. Killer Sense of Humor, you said that you've decided to make a D&D campaign, and I know it's been a little while since you played, so I am happy that you found the inspiration since hanging out with us nerds here to step up and get something going. If you want, just because we're talking about D&D and magic and such, you all can bring up what's happening at your own tabletops as well. This is still a community, and this is still an open forum. We're just providing a guided conversation that's going on in the background and also in front of you, in however that works. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Let's see, Daniel. Okay, that was the comment about me snacking, and that's true. There's always a break. Lethality, you are absolutely true. Do not doubt that I'll just bust out some chips and salsa in front of you all.
I don't mind the least bit.
Yeah. Let's see, DJ Delta. Hey, I caught up on the Voltron Netflix series, and there was a D&D based episode. Oh, interesting. If you want to describe that, DJ, I'd love to hear about that. Cameron invited his roommate to watch us last night, who really seemed to like the broadcast. Says, oh yeah, he really liked the stream. He's going to tune in more. He's actually sitting right next to me. But glad you could show someone this awesome channel. Well, thank you, Cameron. That means a lot. Cameron, by the way, does broadcast. So you might see him do so in our Discord. So Cameron, if you want to, you're welcome to give yourself a little bit of a plug since you broadcast. And obviously LethalityComplex, you're welcome to shout out the gathering of nerds as we go through here. Killer, you fix your sound. Lethality, okay, you said a proper design iterated book rather than just a plain shift. DJ asks, can I ask what are your favorite D&D references in media? Not Critical Role though. Do you have anything along those lines, Lethality? And then I'll answer when you provide yours.
Not a lot really. Like with Dungeons and Dragons, like there's a lot of general pop culture that brings up D&D at some point. Like, for example, The Big Bang Theory's done it.
Yep.
Any show that goes heavy on the geek pop culture will reference D&D at some point, and a lot of those are usually really cool to watch.
I do agree. Big Bang Theory references D&D often. There was I don't know if it's necessarily a favorite, but it was I believe it was a Netflix only movie that had Will Smith in it, and he played I guess it's almost like a near present Shadowrun, where there is a D&D, like, the races of elves and orcs existed in the modern day, and the story took place in Los Angeles, but it was what happens when you get out of get ye flask times, to quote Homestar Runner, when you get out of fantasy medieval roleplay and you bring all of these races and issues forward into the present. Do you remember the name of that?
Yeah, Roger Twy just posted it. It's Bright.
Oh, that's right, Bright. There you go. Hey, I'll remember that because that's the name of one of our PCs. Yeah, Bright. So that was interesting. Of course, there's the old kind of cheesy D&D cartoon that existed, and really, look, I was born in '81, so there you go. You all can do some basic arithmetic. So I got to have formative years in the '80s, and be exposed to this kind of, space barbarians and laser axes and He-Man and She-Ra and kind of a golden age of AD&D, which is where I received my first exposure to it, as I have an older brother who played, and I would just look through his monster manual. I had no idea how the rules worked, but the monster manual described the ecosystems in which these creatures lived, how many would swarm around in a pack, what their alignments and such were. And until a little kid, I'm like, oh, okay, so these are good dragons. I get that. Now I'm just older and skeptical, and I'm a misanthropic cynic. But that's where I got my start, and I didn't really start playing until 2000. So I enjoy those kinds of even if it seems campy, I enjoy those kinds of references. I liked Ready Player One, in my opinion, unsolicited. The book is the book and the movie's the movie. You can't really compare the two because they're only kind of similar, and so I think it'd be unfair to say that the movie was the book. But I enjoyed both, and obviously there's a big dollop of D&D just slathered on top of a lot of the references.
Oh yeah, I mean with Ready Player One, they're similar in intention, but execution is like they're similar in concepts, but execution is very, very different, and that makes all the difference.
DJ Delta, I can help with D&D or with magic terms. And also, Roger Twy suggests we can replace alignment entirely with the 5 colors. Could you agree with that? There's 9 alignments and there's 10 colors. Do we have some sort of a conversion you think that could be handy?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Actually, it looks like, I'm sorry, you replied here. As you can tell, I'm just catching up in chat. How about the first main opponent being Krenko, mob boss, in the campaign? I'm not necessarily for or against that, Delta, but I want to make sure that we're building our setting and our story first. And not that I mind bringing in big named characters, but sometimes that can be dangerous when you're making Look, let's be fair. We're making fan fiction about Ravnica if we're playing D&D in this setting. And so many of us might have preconceived notions about a particular named NPC, or, when we get into specifics, and not the broad concept of a guild or something along those lines. So I don't mind if we bring in a named character of some kind, DJ. I just want to make sure that once we start name dropping, suddenly the focus of the story, whether it's something you read or it's a campaign, suddenly becomes the Krenko show, because we're excited. Oh, we know about Krenko, and so and then the focus shifts. And I want to make sure that we're able to, this is our original content, no steal.
Yeah, original OC donuts, Neil.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Again, wow, you're on top of it, Lethality. You already replied to that anyway. Killer Sense, you've run hundreds of games and created over 50 or so campaigns. Thank you. And yes, I inspired your choice. That is great, Killer Sense of humor, and I very much appreciate the fact we're able to rekindle those fires. Okay, so that's Bright. Lost Girl, actually, DJ. That one does touch on fantasy, especially if you like the Fae or the Feywild. Lost Girl can give you some insight into Fae politics. And the Orc Police one is that was the one that was the movie with Will Smith. Yeah, take a look at Bright, DJ. It was very okay. It's not going to win an Oscar, and that's fine, because I don't think it was supposed to. It presented an idea, and it followed through on the idea. And because I wear rosy, I love D&D and fantasy, tinted glasses, I was fine with it. Just don't spoil yourself on the Cinema Sins version, because there are spoilers in there that you should not see until you watch the movie for yourself. Oh, Dark Wolf, you had a great session today. Well, it is Wednesday. You do run the Lost Mine of Fandelver at the store. Thank you for that, and Dark Wolf, you're welcome to share about your session here if you'd like, or in your diary on our Discord. And yep, nothing bad with fan fiction. Keller's sense of humor. Spillheart's gonna need another Owlbear mini. Oh snap! Well, you tell him to get on and start bidding on. I think he pulled that out of Elemental Evil. No, wait. Shoot. Well, tell him to start bidding on boxes, Dark Wolf. we'll crack him open and see if we can get him another Owlbear. And hello, New Monica. Oh, Dark Tower Gunslinger. I did not consider that, Usher. That is it's a different kind of fantasy, but I would put that square in the realm of kind of influenced media. Hello, Cake Boss, and oh, you're working on your Star Wars campaign. Awesome. Good on you for doing that. You're welcome to share your progress updates here. Okay. New Monica, because DJ Delta asked what are your favorite non-critical role media, like D&D inspired media, and so we're talking about different shows and series and cartoons and movies and such. But okay, so Lethality, thank you for letting me catch up in chat here and get everything going. We are going to be discussing the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and we're going to be making a setting for the two characters that we made last week to operate inside of, to have influence over, and we're going to create an adventure of some kind for them based on the tenets of Ravnica. All right, so I do have an open office pad here. It's ready to go, so if we need to make notes or inspiration strikes us, I can type it out at any point in time. Where would you like me to start with a visual presentation? Do you want me to go to the Guildland tab, or do you want to give an opening speech or some sort of a concept?
Well, I'll give a bit of an opening speech, and then I'll direct you to the Guildlands.
Sure.
So, from what the characters seem like, it seems that this setting, the city block that they'll be in, because the city is divided into blocks. The city blocks are probably will be one lower down, as they extend pretty far down into the ground, as well as quite a ways up into the sky. It seems it'll be a poorer neighborhood. Probably one rife with activity from some of the more rowdy guilds, especially those of the Rakdos, the Orzhov, the Demir, and maybe even a bit of Gruul influence, as the untamed wilds that they were in charge of now basically no longer exist, and they like to rabble-rouse in the lower parts of Ravnica, because the girl, although being very disparate and not very bright, do know for a fact that if you give the Rakdos something chaotic and what they would consider fun to do, they'll do it.
I would agree with you. It sounded like when we were brainstorming that they do collect money from people in their territory, and so the neighborhood kind of gets together and pays off this this insurance fee. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to your store if you didn't pay up. So there might be individual businesses that offer some special security fees to them, but overall, I think that these two. They're not mechanically rogues, but I mean, we'll just say that these two rogues, these two anti-heroes, have staked out a part of Ravnica for themselves, and even if it's only in their own selfish interest to continue to collect money, they are they are doing what they do to keep it as safe as feasible, or at least they're willing to do the work that perhaps, if there is a police presence like the Boros Legion, which are kind of the army and the police, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They are a they're a militaristic, quasi-military. They're a militia. They're basically a militia.
Okay. So maybe there's places that they're unwilling to go to, or they've tried and it's just with their own moral code. In fact, would you say would red white be our lawful good, or would you put that as maybe green white? If we're using the idea that we can take the guilds as alignments.
For Boros, the red white.
Yeah.
Lawful good.
Lawful good.
Yep. Lawful good, or they also tend into lawful neutral, as white blue also does. As the Boros, although they strive to do the morally right thing, or they also strive to do what is just, what the Azoria say is just. The Boros can also tend to be very militaristic and very strict, following the law to the letter with less regard for the spirit that it was written in.
Okay, so I'm typing on our notepad just as we're having this stream of consciousness. Boros would be more likely to be lawful good, but you said that you think that they would also tread into neutral good territory, or
lawful neutral,
not lawful neutral. Sure.
Lawful neutral territory.
Sure, we'll put names down. Guilds can straddle a couple alignments. They're not all shoehorned in. Okay. So please, let me see. The police tend to over-patrol the poor areas and under-patrol the rich folk. Poor communities might pool their money to hire these PCs to keep them safe from rich people doing bad things and just not caring what ends up happening to the rich people. That could very well be, Pneumatica. That does seem like a very compelling... that would seem like a very compelling reason for them to adventure. In fact, here, I'll copy-paste it into our stream of consciousness notes as something to keep in mind and consider. DJ, I guess the Orzhov would be lawful evil?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely lawful evil. A lot of the guilds do tend into the neutral category. Like the three neutrals, the lawful, the true, and the chaotic neutral category, because a lot of them do things that aren't considered good, but they're not considered evil either.
Well, yeah, because they have to exist. They have to coexist with each other. And if someone just straight out was like, whoa, well, I mean, there's the cult of Rakdos. But that's their thing. Yeah. Everyone's like, that's your thing, and that's fine. We're not even competing for that. You can have it by default. But you do have to be civil. You have to exist and not irritate the other clans who could very easily, gang up on you. Guilds, not... because there are the clans of the Gruul.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that, a lot of the major events that have happened within Ravnica, which is something that we should talk about in a moment.
Sure.
As far as talking about just the time for this setting, what kind of state is the world in?
Yeah, I'm gonna write this: state of Ravnica upon opening of the adventure. Actually, you prompted something very good, because there have been 2 sets now, and obviously there's a third coming out that's going to be coinciding with this book. But Ravnica has been through some stuff, has been through these eons and these periods of growth and conflict.
Yes.
So where would you like, as our resident live co-DM narrator, Where are we in Ravnica's history, and if we're to put it in MTG terms, or in some other chronology, where are we? What is the overarching happenings of Ravnica?
So I would set it um, between the current two blocks that we have. So uh, the the Simic has undergone its changes. The original guild pact forged by Azor 10,000 years ago has been broken, and the new one that has been drafted up by Taser Karlov of the Orzhov Syndicate is now in place.
Okay.
But before the events of Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash, and Dragon's Maze, before the endless maze becomes a thing within Ravnica, and before the maze runners become a thing.
Okay, so at some generic time between the first set and the second set.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, between the first block and the second block.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said block, not because there's sets. Yeah. Terminology, everyone. We do have to be careful. It's like, oh yeah, let's talk about the clans of Ravnica, and you're like, yeah, let's talk about. There's all sorts of Gruul clans.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean the guilds. Oh yeah, it's the guilds. You know, oh, and and so you know the Orzhov just has legions of people. And what you mean the Boros? So we there are some. I don't think we're walking on eggshells, but we do want to make sure we're keeping some of the terminology consistent.
Yes.
That I mean, I slip up on it. It happens over the course of time, but whatever. Okay, so between the two major sets, that's a one sentence abbreviation of what you said, but that's fine. So Ravnica is undergoing this change from one guild pact to the next. It is a new era. The old is done. That actually seems like a very good time for this kind of new justice, at least locally here, because there's probably in a new agreement there's probably people that do feel abandoned or abused, or as Pneumonica put it, there's probably higher ups, literally and metaphorically. There's higher ups who don't consider or don't care or purposely plot against those who are beneath them, and so they've fallen through the cracks during this time of transition, and so they need this kind of help from others. And
yes. Well, in this time, some of the guilds have changed hands. For example, a good example is the Boros Legion. The Boros Legion has only very recently come under the command of an angel by the name of Aurelia.
Okay.
There's the Simic who have just been implicated with something absolutely horrible thanks to their old guildmaster Momir Vig, who has been deposed and is now deceased. They have now been given this guild has now been given over to the merfolk of Ravnica, led by their prime speaker Zagana. The Azorius Senate has just lost their Grand Arbiter, Augustin the Fourth,
Mm-hmm.
and now a Sphinx, Esperia, now rules in his place, and that's very important as the Azorius Senate is they are the lawmakers, they are the people who make the rules that are enforced by everyone else. But no, it's a very tumultuous time of change. Given the things that have just happened, Experiment Kraj, which was a Simic creation, has just gone on a rampage. So the Simic has very much fallen out of the public trust.
A very good EDH general too.
Yes, Experiment Kraj is very fun. I love playing Experiment Kraj. You also get things like the Demir, who are very, very quiet. A lot of the general populace of the mid to higher ranks don't even know that the Dimir exist. They're a myth. Basically.
In the original block, they were kind of the missing guild. There was 9 guilds that seemed to be active, and if I recall correctly, wasn't the big story driven like the plot was around the Demirs actually waking up and asserting themselves back in Ravnican power because their leader woke up out of torpor or something like that, because he's a big old mean vampire, if I recall correctly.
Yes, you'd be referring to the vampire Zadok. He didn't wake up out of torpor, but he put into motion a plan that he had been planning for the last 10,000 years to basically break the guild pact. And he managed to rope Momirvig, the guild leader of the Simic, into helping him. And basically, he almost succeeded. Well, he succeeded. He broke the guild pact. The guild pact dissolved. This ancient magic that the Perun, the creator of the Azorius Senate, a planeswalker by the name of Azor, who is a Sphinx, which we found out, honestly, in a very, very different set on a very different plane. But that already has its own plane shift, and we're not going to talk about that today. But it's important info. Basically, he was the one who created this guild pact to begin with, and whilst Zadok did sign it, there was an issue that the Dimir had where they had signed it as basically a silent partner, where they would work very much in the shadows. But at this point, now that the new drafted guild pact by Taser has come into effect, under the new guild leader of Lazav, they are now more well known amongst the populace as kind of a necessary service. They're your information gatherers, your spies, your assassins, your interrogators, and whatnot.
Couriers too, right?
Yes, they do also. They are also couriers of messages.
Okay. So you've discussed a lot of the guilds and the things that they've done. To bring it back real quick to the content that we've created, do we want our characters to be independent of a guild? Completely? Do we want them to perhaps be courting a guild or several and proving themselves, or rather, because they're proving themselves independently, guilds may court them? Or would we like them to start off in the service of a guild already?
Well, the point of the guildless is very, very important in Ravnican lore, in that the guildless fall under the protection of the Boros. The Boros protect them, and the Selesnya guild, which I haven't talked about, but they're very nice druid people. Foster them because they protect the guildless, because the guildless can't protect themselves.
Are you looking at DJ Delta's question?
Yeah, no, just typing a very quick response to
Okay,
him.
gotcha. While you're doing that, something to consider too. How many people in Ravnica are guildless? Are we talking about the vast majority of the citizenry? So like 95% of the people in Ravnica are actually guildless, and only the top big gears churning to make the city work are a part of the guild? Or what are we talking about when we say the guildless? Is it a minority, a majority, half and half?
Oh, they are. The guildless are a massive minority. Basically, the guildless are people who don't align themselves with any of the guilds. A lot of people do align, like a lot of the regular citizens do align themselves with some of the guilds, especially especially Rakdos, as despite them being murderous cultists, they're also the guild that manages blue collar workers.
Yeah.
Which you would think is strange, but they actually do a good job. Yeah, as DJ Delta just posted, the guild list is about 10% or less of the entire population.
Okay.
And Ravnica's population is easily more than the entire world population, easily 10 or so billion people, if not more.
Under the care of the Celestia, obviously. Sorry, I was channeling the NPC Pouty Lips. Just that is to say, my autocorrect isn't going to get Celestia. I think I spelled that correctly. The Celestia and Boros, the guild lists under the protection of, or at least they're supposed to be.
Yep.
But it seems like we might be featuring a story where that's not the case, at least on this block.
Yep. Well, that is where as I was saying yesterday, where something very interesting comes in. When Twitch wants to comply with me. That is something that I brought up yesterday, that these protection services are very much offered in a lower in the lower parts, in the poorer parts of Ravnica. These kinds of protection services, as you said, you were looking for a like, are they aligned with the guild? Are they not? And if they were to be aligned with the guild, it would most especially since you have a Death Cleric as one of your NPCs, and the Warlock is
Fiend Chain.
It is Fiend Chain. They could, if they are religious, the Orzhov Syndicate, which is they are the religious hierarchy here in Ravnica.
Yes.
But the way to explain it, I suppose, would be that they're gangster church. They're mobster church.
Yeah.
they like, and especially since I said they hold and collect debts and things like that. That if they were working for the Orzhov, they would always get paid. Because to the Orzhov, death is just the beginning. If you still have a debt and you die, they enslave your soul until you pay it off. And it would also give them the ability to, outside of their own power, make sure that the church gets their tithe. Because in these poorer, darker parts of Ravnica, the church always gets their tithe. Because if they don't, this is going to be a very, very quick reference, but I'll send it to you in secret.
Okay. Whoop. There. Now no one can see the secret you sent me. I took it off screen. That is, unless it's gonna open this up right here. Let's do this just to be safe. Okay, there we go. Oh, that card.
Yes. If you do not pay your debts, that happens.
Yep.
And they have no care in the world for whatever. They're more than happy to help you, but if you don't pay back what you owe, there you are. Your existence might be cut just a little bit short.
And you know, I think sprinkling in, maybe not too much, because again, I want to make sure that our story focuses on our heroines or our anti-heroines. But somewhat similar to what DJ Delta had proposed. Well, you know, are they going to meet Krenko, the mob boss, or what can happen? We can have events like that card take place, even by name. You know, everyone knows that, you know, what just happened is called the whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe as we describe the scene, it's something that takes place in the background where there's posters that are put up, and you know, on, it looks like every 3 of 5 doors here has a poster. Heck, even out of every 5 would still be a lot of the people. And they all have this notification that something will happen unless a payment occurs. And in fact, that could even be a partial race against time for that could be a compelling force for our heroines, because if the Orzhov get their way and get their money, then they lose their own money. So they're in a localized competition. And to dovetail into what Pneumonica said, they might even view the Orzhov as the uncaring rich. Now, mind you, that our heroines here are probably farming the poor people for money, but they're asking for less than what the Orzhov Guild is, the Orzhov Syndicate. And so maybe they want to gather money to pay off the neighborhood's debt to prevent this event, quote unquote, from happening. And so to do that, they might try and, I don't know, take down another evil rich person, or they might try and have the debt canceled because they're digging up dirt. Because look, who's going to have skeletons in their closet but the Orzhovs?
Well, I mean, they literally do have skeletons in their closet.
You could say the Golgari, but I won't believe it, because they'll just, they'll mulch, they'll compost all that stuff, the bone meal, to make like, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Like mushroom farms or something. And so that could be a very dangerous game to play. Also, is infiltrating the Orzhov Syndicate. If that's, because I think we should give our players, quote unquote, such as we have them, a choice. How do you want to address what's happening here? There's a major debt that's owed. I think we found a cool plot point through what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The neighborhood owes a debt, a good chunk of it, and if only out of self-interest, our anti-heroines need to find a way to pay off that debt. And you could do so by working and taking missions. You can do so by maybe like making one big heist. Because I seriously doubt the Orzhovs care where the money comes from. Presuming it's not their own coffers. Or they can try and infiltrate and dig up some dirty deeds done by the Orzhov that might even violate their own contracts, or otherwise find them in, I don't know, in some sort of conflict, or the worst, you want to talk about some sort of damnation in the afterlife. The Orzhovs don't do that. What you do is you feed the Orzhovs to the Azorius to look over contract law. And and you feed the Orzhovs to the Azorius, and then you see what really happens as those two guilds finally have their their gears really meshed together, and you have these two like contract making super loophole weaving, needle threading, minutia legalistic maneuvering guilds as they find themselves in contest. And meanwhile, it's like in the 40k universe when the humans fed the Tyranids the orcs. And said, well, look, they're still out there, but they're not killing us right now, so we can at least breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, no, that is very true. Yeah, it would put the two guilds into contention with each other. Although the Azorius, depending on what the Orzhov do, may just step back and be like, well, that is the contract that you have set, and we see no issue with it. which is why I would never put Azorius as lawful good. They are lawful neutral. They are very much like the Boros in that they care only for the word of the contract, not really the spirit in which it was written. However, they take that to an extreme. Like they would basically, if I was to make a D&D equivalent of the Azorius, it would be it would basically be that Orzovs are devils and the Azorius are the Modrons and Inevitables and outsiders of Mechanus.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, to me anyway, I'm nodding and going, yeah. There might be some people in the audience who are like Modrons, Mechanicus. What's going on here? If you want to at least give a side note on that.
Yes. Mechanus in the normal D&D cosmology, you can find this in your 5th edition Player's Handbook if you have one, is that it is the true lawful neutral plane. It is a plane of clockwork and of creatures that respect logic and law above everything else. If any of you have a monster manual, you'll actually be able to find a bit about Modrons written up under their entry in the monster manual.
Now, kids, you all brought your books to class today, didn't you?
I hope you did.
Open to page whatever. Come on now, kids. We're not here to have fun. We're here to lecture and to browbeat and to and to be completely like soul crushing, dry humored, stereotypical pedagogues.
Ha ha
Yeah.
ha.
Oh. Okay, so while you were describing that, I did write down our plot thought. At risk of losing a chunk of their territory, the team must repay a massive debt to the syndicate, else face quote-unquote eviction.
Yes.
As I think we have our enemies or our foils or some other type of antagonists here. Would you like me to hop over to Guildland and we can do kind of a review or a summary of them to learn a little bit more about our enemies or even possible friends?
Sure. We can do that. I think that would be a perfect segue into talking about the guilds and the kind of things that they actually do for the city.
Okay. So I have guild bounce lands, gates, guild halls, shock lands. Or did you want me? Is there another link you want me to go to here?
Nope. That the names will be perfect to begin with, because the very important ones in there are the guild halls,
Okay.
the bounce lands, and the shock lands. The gates are things that happen later on in Return to Ravnica, and in the timing that we have set, these things haven't happened yet.
Okay.
A very good example. So these guild halls are basically, these are the headquarters of each of the guilds. These are very, very big places that one might actually journey outside of their little neighborhood to go visit, especially ones like the Church of Deals or Zova, if they're dealing with the Orzov.
Do you want me to click on that one? I'm sorry, or were you going over something else first?
We don't need to go into the card page. The names are enough.
Okay.
As I do some description.
Gotcha.
So, having a look at them all, you can see that these places are the kind of places that, with the exception of the Demir one, everyone knows about them. So, you know, if any NPC that you ask knows about the Church of Deals, they know about the area of the Firemind, which is the area of the Guildmaster Emperor of the Izzet League, who do all the civil engineering and scientific works inside the city. They know about Prav, or in this case, is the original Prav was blown up
Okay.
by, during the events of Guildpact Dissension. They know about places like the dungeon, the Rixmarty, the Dungeon Palace, and they know about Vidugazi, the City Tree, and things like that. These are all very important places that people, that are the NPCs would know of, and it's the things that the PCs would know of as well. And if they were to ever go and petition the guilds for things, they might actually, you know, go to these places and be like, hey, I need your help. Or in the case of our plot point of paying a debt back to the Orzhov, they might go to the Church of Deals after they've gathered their money and be like, here. Or if they infiltrate the church, that's the main church. You know, you might they might go into one of their other basilicas, but that's the main one. And if they're like, oh well, okay, you've paid off your debt, you guys seem interesting enough, we're gonna take you to go speak to someone higher. This is where you need to go.
Now, a question for you then regarding that is, I imagine, look, Ravnica is Coruscant, right? In Star Wars, it is a planet-wide city.
Yes.
I imagine that there are miniature like sub offices or little communes or other extensions of the main facility. But for the main facilities, are they all located generally in one area of the planet? Or does the planet have several, say, continents, and every guild is stationed in a continent? So, for example, if well, you're in Australia, would the Gruul, like, so we have Australia, the Rage Pits. Like, is that Gruul territory as a continent, and then Europe is the Restless Tomb, or something like that, or are they actually all 10, or at least the 9 with a kind of subdued demeanor? Are they scattered, or are they concentrated?
They are concentrated. As you said, Ravnica is very much like Coruscant from Star Wars. Like, they don't have this plane doesn't have seas and things like that, like normal worlds do. A lot of their water comes from, they have more underground oceans, which have massive holes in the very few natural parts of Ravnica left that haven't been turned into city.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an underwater section of Ravnica under the ground, where, as I said, the new rulers of the Simic Combine, the Merfolk, exist. It's where a lot of the water creatures come from as well. Meanwhile, a lot of the other guilds they're scattered amongst the cityscape in different areas. So the Golgari's Svogthos, the Restless Tomb, which is actually alive, thanks to, and Svogthos is actually a very, very there's a story thing to that which could actually be brought up if the players ever went there. Basically, like, just to do a very quick rundown, Svogthos is alive and is the containment for the Perun of the Golgari, the creator of the Golgari swarm, Svogthir, because there's been a lot of backstabbing in the Golgari as far as who leads it is concerned. But they're basically scattered amongst the amongst the levels of Ravnica. As another example, the Boros guild home, Sun Home, is actually a flying airship, which monitors from the skies. They monitor the goings on of the city below and send people out. That would also be what's currently being rebuilt as the Demir actually ran Sunhome into Prav, which is why Prav is also currently being rebuilt.
Oopsie.
Yes. Very, very much whoopsie.
Then you're bringing up another good point here with the scope of, well, we have an entire planet that it's explored in so much that the entire planet's been developed, but of course who can know every home, every business, etc. and so forth in Ravnica. In Eberron, we saw that there is an infrastructure to travel. They have airships are fairly common. They have this lightning rail. And magic is widespread. Not everyone might be able to fly everywhere personally, but there's vehicles and such. How would our anti-heroes here be getting around over long distances? I imagine they're containing themselves to a block, because a block is still a lot of people and a lot of territory to travel on foot or through elevators and stairs and whatever. But let's say that we want them to go beseech the Azorius Senate and say, look, the Orzhovs with the I want to prevent get an injunction on what the Orzhovs are doing. And we want to fill out the paperwork. So if they wanted to go to the place, but they're, I don't know, half a planet away, or, I mean, not even half. If they're a tenth of a planet away, that's still a rather long trek. What kind of transportation exists to the common or uncommon folk of Ravnica?
As they are as they're in a lower part of the city, there are things to get around. There are passages unknown to those, except for those in the Demir and the Rakdos, and the guilds that basically get around on the lower parts of Ravnica, called the Rogues Passages, and they shorten travel times very considerably. And as for other long distance travel, airship is usually the way to go. Some people, if they're rich enough, might have a personal mount, such as that of an Archon or something similar. Although to see those outside of the hands of high-ranking Boros and Azorius members is very rare.
Okay. Would you consider, either through the cards or the lore that you're aware of, or look, this is now D&D. Well, I guess it'll officially be D&D in November, but intents and purposes, the teleportation spell does exist, as do teleportation circles. If so, would you see teleportation as something that is viable to, well, if not the mass populace, the underclasses, maybe to people who, even though they're doing it through nefarious deals, we have these uncommon anti-heroines. Could that kind of magic be available?
Very, very much so. Especially if they decided that they wanted to do a little bit of work for either the Izzet League or the Houses of Demir.
Very good.
As the Izzet love experimenting with new things.
Yes, they do.
And, with the entire thing of the teleport spell and arcane mishaps and things like that, that kind of chaos, that randomness, is the kind of thing that the Izzet live for. They love explosive mistakes because they can learn.
Actually, if I recall correctly, when we were going over the races, let's see, we have Via Shino images. There was a Via Shino that was a part of the Izzets, and they were trying to give it wings made of electricity. And I'm trying to look for that card. Do you know what I'm talking about? Ah, here we go. Pursuit of Flight. Red and one other enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has blue. This creature gains flying until end of turn. So yeah, they might be able to. I guess flying. I don't know if like personal jetpacks are a thing with the Izzets, but some spells might be able to give them short or medium distance flying. I guess they could always. I'd say rub elbows with a Simic, but you actually might catch something from them doing that. You might catch a mutation, but you might be able to beseech them. Hey, can you like graft on some temporary wings or something if necessary, and you can fly over the city that way? Are there besides the Boros? Are there known vehicles weren't a mechanic in Ravnica? That came later on with
Kaladesh.
with Kaladesh. If this is on Kaladesh, I wouldn't even ask about vehicles because vehicles were the thing.
They're everywhere.
But are there any airships or artifacts or things like that would be considered? Or that?
Well, one of the main things that happens within the original Ravnica block is the Simic were actually marketing cytoplasts to people. And
That's
these cytoplasts
right.
They were basically graftable mutations that you could take on and off. And it would basically those cytoplasts could basically take the place of some of the magical items. So, for example.
By the way, real quick, if you Google cytoplast, apparently there's some sort of there's nothing that's breaking terms of service, but this is an actual medical thing. It looks like some sort of grafting. It actually does look like some sort of like suture filler, some sort of grafting material. So let's type in Simic. I guess we learned a lesson here. There we go. Here's a bunch of blue-green stuff that doesn't look like holes in people's mouths.
Yeah.
And of course it's blue, so flying is going to be included in here somewhere too.
Oh yeah, but because Experiment Crash was actually the culmination of that technology. Being designed to take the shapes of whatever.
Cytoplasts through the Simic. All right. I mean, I imagine the Boros might be able to give them a lift on some sort of an emergency responder vehicle if they're the militia, the police, the military, and they have to respond. But you probably have to commit a crime first to be picked up in one of their cruisers.
With that, a lot of the Boros Legion, they deploy mostly through magic, but the some of the Boros are actually just full-on angels.
Yeah, well, I guess.
And they just fly. They just a lot of the Boros, they just have angels and they fly places. For those who aren't angels, especially members of the Boros' elite Wojek League.
Oh yeah, the Wojeks.
There's actually not a lot of explanation as to how they properly deploy. Oh yes, DJ Delta just brought up a very good point. There are also thralls that can be ridden. They're big, dumb, thralled creatures that especially under the surface of the Orzhov.
So thrall taxis.
Yeah, basically thrall taxis. That would be if someone has to go long distance. That's probably how the lower class get around, is on top of a thrall.
Okay. That'll work. And I'm sure the Dimir, if they could find anyone there, could look. If they're couriers anyway, they probably have ways of getting around. But like you said, they're probably secret entrances and may not necessarily be
very secret. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is everything about the Dimir is shadowy and very, very, very under the table.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have some ways of getting around, and you know what? I think you brought up another good point, Lethality. We have our two heroes. I mean, they're anti-heroes, or I don't know if this would technically count as an evil campaign, but we certainly have evil-aligned PCs, or, you know, the stars of our show here. And in storytelling, it's often good to have a character, even if they tend to be more one-dimensional, to reflect or to offset the protagonist in some way. Maybe not necessarily as an antagonist or a foil, but even as a one-dimensional character, a mirror to hold up to him. So we have two ladies who, you know, they're willing to do wet work. They're willing to take on these questionable jobs, and I almost want to say that for storytelling purposes, one of the NPCs that they should interact with, if not in the pursuit of transportation, or even in pursuit of them, I made the reference to a Zenigata chasing after Lupin and the gang, Fujiko and everyone. They should probably have some kind of a Zenigata figure, maybe an angel in the Boros League, or maybe they have a lawyer friend in the Azoria Senate. I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I guess they could have both. But I think we should make a couple NPCs that our PCs can approach in some form or fashion for advice, for gear. I almost want to say, like, the Dimir is like the merchant from Resident Evil 4. You know, he's always kind of lurking around, always wearing this trench coat, you know, stranger, what are you boying? And it always seems to have what they need, even if they didn't know that they needed it at the time. Do you agree with this, or do you have any ideas? Since we are talking about these guilds and transportation and such.
A Dimir representative, because the Dimir never deal with each other. They never deal. They deal with themselves and with other people only on a need-to basis.
Okay.
Like on a physical level. So as a Dimir representative in their pocket, who will be able to source them things like is it technologies and things like that. Probably an NPC that they would very much want to know.
And you know what? That is excellent too. We have 10 guilds, and I don't think that every guild should be featured. For a similar reason that we don't want to name drop too much, because we don't want this to be about the guilds. We want this to be about the PCs. And so a Dimir representative or a Dimir merchant can do exactly what you said. It can distill, is it technology? Heck, it can even distill Simic cytoplasts and other upgrades. And it can represent, it can distill or bottle, or like funnel, not necessarily bottleneck, but funnel several guilds worth of resources through only one NPC. And I think for a storytelling session, that is important. Because when you're playing MTG or whatnot, or you're not really playing in a game, but you're just exploring the lore for yourself, you have all the time in the world to look and explore the nuance and the art and everything. But when you're playing at a tabletop, heck, even with a group of friends, and I don't mean any offense to any of you out there, or heck, even including you, Selene, sometimes it's like herding cats. You have a goal in mind as a DM, and you want to get to that next section, and the PCs are actually, because they're engaged with your world, and so this is a compliment, and I'm not ragging on you here, Lethality. You run D&D, so you understand too. In order to go to have a simple, you start at A, and I want you all to go to B. Well, oftentimes,
They'll go to C and to D and to E and F and G first.
Yeah, or they'll even make up like an 8.5. And when did we bring numbers into the alphabet?
Yeah, it's like, when did numbers get in here? Yeah. No, I very much agree with that. That the other things, yeah, no, they'll just go wherever they want to go, and it's kind of your job as DM to kind of like lead them around.
All right, so we have a facilitator. We have someone who is kind of neutral towards what they want to do, but will, you know, encourage them in some form or fashion, or at least facilitate that. Who do we want to offset our PCs? Who do we want to be that reflection back of, you know, are we doing the right thing? Are we good people or bad people? Do we want that to be Azorius? Do we want that to be Boros? Heck, do we want that to be I don't know, Rakdos? Because the Rakdos don't pretend to be what they are. They just are. They're naturally themselves. And here we have these ladies who are fighting an identity, right? Of, you know, we're doing good things. Meanwhile, they're like slitting throats in the middle of the night to keep their neighborhood clean.
Yeah.
What kind of an offsetting, or like a Zenigata style, or an opposite? I'm trying to think of the proper term for it. It might be antagonist, because it's not a villain. It's just someone who, you know, you can get along with, but character. I'm sorry?
It's just a character that's in opposition to the main characters.
Yeah.
And anyone who's in yeah.
A foil, says Bobicus. Okay.
It is basically a foil. It would probably be probably as the probably would be the Boros, as the Azorius. The Azorius are never the guild to get their hands dirty.
Okay.
It's what they have the Boros for.
Okay. And then it seems then if the Azorius aren't going to get their hands dirty, the Azorius can play a guiding figure, kind of like a. I want to be careful how I'm putting this. Almost like a Gandalf, right? They have this wisdom, but you have to accomplish the task on your own. I'm going to tell you enough to get you here, but you have to go through the motions. Because if they do want to stop the Orzhov as the actual antagonist, as the villain, so to speak, of this plot, the Orzhovs can't help them until X, Y, or Z. You have to get proof that they did something. You have to jump through these legal loopholes. You have to do something or another. So it's not that they're unwilling to help. It's just that they can't help until some condition is met, which could then... so they're the quest giver kind of a thing. They're the leader of the group without actively leading the group. Does that make sense?
And Azorius, basically they'd be like an Azorius mastermind who kind of sees what the PCs are doing and is like, you wanna stick it to the Orzhov. Well, we kind of want to stick it to the Orzhov too, and what you're doing might actually like the Azorius mastermind might actually see these PCs and do an almost Demir thing in manipulating them into doing what they wish. Because the Demir are all about manipulation and using agents and things like that, but the Azorius aren't above that either. It's just the reasons why they do it. Like Demir would be lawful neutral, lawful evil, whereas Azorius would be just true lawful neutral and maybe a little bit of lawful good.
So really what we've proven is you can't trust blue.
Oh no, you can't trust blue.
Blue really is the worst color. Everyone's like, oh no, I play a black deck. Ooh, spooky skeletons. You know what a skeleton is. But come on, when you start getting into wordplay and illusions and stuff like that, come on. Come on, blue.
Time
Blue is actually the
time
worst.
manipulation.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on
I,
time manipulation.
I play blue just for the simple fact of it allows me to go, oh, you want to do this thing? No. Counterspell.
Yeah, exactly. You.
Blue is the color that allows people to say that you can't play anymore. Why? Because I say so.
Yeah.
Although it depends on what kind of colors you pair it with. Like, we've got two examples here. The Demir who blue black, which is very much your consumption and your consumption and consuming life to make knowledge, and you have your blue white who are all about law and order and control. With the entire thing that you said about not having every guild involved, like I could think of a couple of guilds that would probably be eliminated off the bat. The Selesnya would want no part of this.
Okay.
As it not only doesn't serve their purposes, but it could jeopardize those that they protect.
I like that, especially because you said the Boros protect the guildless. And so if the Selesnya are bowing out, that would mean that our two PCs have to almost enter into an unwilling relationship with the Boros.
Yes.
And so the Boros kind of distill, or kind of how the Demir facilitator represented several clans. The Boros, it doesn't represent Selesnya, but we've accounted for Selesnya by asserting the Boros into the story.
Yes. They probably wouldn't encounter the Gruul either. Not unless they had an alignment change to chaotic evil and decided that we want to kind of screw shit up.
One second, I'm replying to McCoolman here. I was thinking about making a D&D campaign with friends. My question is, what would I need and how would I make it fun? And you know, McCoolman, you're discovering the process here in front of you as well, as LethalityComplex and I are going over what's the setting. Consider the world in which this is taking place, and then let's just draw elements almost out of a hat or through our stream of consciousness conversation and see what sticks. One idea might be like, yeah, that's cool. And then you come up with another idea, 2 ideas later, and you say, no, this is definitely what I'm doing. So McCoolman, certainly you can watch and continue to take notes. You can ask questions. And if you do want some active help with your campaign, we can help out with that too. So as I'm advising you, start simple and build out from there. There are many different ways to build a campaign. You can see some of them on our Discord and my YouTube. However, as you are a part of the community, we can actively help you in our workshop too. Okay. You don't need a map, McCoolman. A map can help. It can help organize ideas. But we're not operating on a map even here. In fact, I'll tell you what, Lethality. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a quick 10-minute break. And no, I'm not going to get a snack this time, although I might fill up my pitcher with some ice water. Are you cool taking about a 10-minute break? And then we can come back and continue discussing things?
Yeah, I think that works perfectly, because it allows that perfect segue into talking about not only maybe 1 or 2 other NPCs that they might encounter, but what their neighborhood looks like. Like what's around? What kind of things?
Yeah.
What kind of local guild facilities do they have around? What kind of facilities do they have around? You know, is it a very heavy industrial area where there's a lot of is it boiler works and steam vents, or you know, do they have an Orza Basilica in their neighborhood? Do they have aqueducts in their neighborhood? Do they have a rot farm of the Golgari, or a Simic growth chamber, or something like that? What do they have around in their neighborhood that makes it stand out from the other city blocks of Ravnica.
Yeah. All right. So
is basically.
so McCoolman, you came at a good time because you're taking this journey with us. So stay tuned. Give us about 10 minutes, and we will come back and we will finish up. Well, we don't have to finish up. We can go as long as you'd like, Lethality. But we'll get into the next part of the conversation regarding this Ravnica setting and how we can build a campaign inside of it in D&D, despite it being a Magic property.
Yeah. I think that sounds really good. The internet tech hasn't shown up yet, so that'll be good.
Fortunately, you have stayed connected, though.
Yeah, no, I basically got told 10 minutes before jumping on the stream. It's like, oh, we're getting our internet upgraded today. And I'm like, oh no, that's... Okay, well, I should be able to, work around it, and I don't think they'll turn off the internet until such time as they actually need to, switch us over to the new system that we're getting in.
Okay,
but,
just let me know.
If that does happen, I should only be gone at most about 10 minutes. As for time, I'm good to go until 3 a.m. your time, 5 o'clock.
Cool.
And in which case, after that, I'll probably go and get some food and do some work that I need to some work that I need to get done.
Okay, then I have 12:40 a.m. my time. I'll see you back at around 12:50 then.
Yeah, 12:50 works.
All right, everyone, stay tuned, and we'll be back to finish this up.